I do, and I'm thankful that I'm here to do this with you. Thank you for staying tuned. It's time now for us to dig into the papers. And I'll be doing this together with my colleague, Gifty Ando-Apia. Hopefully, she joins for us to discourse on matters pertinent to our national life and global life, I should say. So for me, I'll be taking a look at the Daily Graphic newspaper, the Daily Dispatch, the Daily Statesman, the New Independent newspaper, I don't always do that, and the Business and Financial Times. We also have the Business Finder, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, and the Daily Guide, which Gifty Ando-Apia hopefully will be taking a look at. But I'll start from right here in the studio as I take a look at some of the headlines from the papers I have. And there's this one that, got to us yesterday. A lot of people talking about it. The fight against illegal mining. But of course, there are those who are also dealing in illegal mining and with consequences. 3 illegal miners jailed 45 years. 3 of them jailed 45 years. And that's pretty hefty. Not hefty in terms of the punishment, but I mean in terms of life, 45 years to deal with between them. And 720,000 Ghana cedis as well. I'll bring you details of that story. It's on page 41 of the newspaper. There's also integrating the mentally ill into society. 222 cured patients stranded. That is also one of the headlines, in fact, the banner headline in the Daily Graphic. And just making mention of this reminds me of something that my, friend, especially who also is in the media, Francis Aban, shared yesterday. Apart from the mentally ill, this is something that I've noticed. I just feel I should make mention of it very quickly this morning. It has to do with the street urchins, the little ones who beg for money, the mendicants on our roads. It's becoming serious. Nowadays, I mean, not just them, it's basically an attack, an assault on you when you're driving through town at intersections and all of that. They come, they rap on your windscreen or your door. They are getting more and more violent. They insist, they persist, and all of that. And in some instances, I've heard people share, and I've had the same experience, where they are hurling insults at you. A lady shared on social media that a child approached her, and when she said no, the child did this. Now, you know what this means, right? I mean, the child was not saying, I'm hungry. The child was doing this. And I don't know for how long we're going to sit and wait as we discourse on this matter. They're getting more brave, more violent, and hopefully nothing happens. Sometimes even I am scared at the way they approach. So this is just something I'm putting out there. I don't know. But even as we talk about those mentally ill in our society and how we're treating them, I think we ought to address that issue, because I feel we're sitting on a time bomb. And someday, if we're not careful, it will explode in all our faces. NBSSI changes to Ghana Enterprises Agency, and 145 million Ghana cedis go to the SMEs. This is something that was made mention of at the last Ministry of Information. Well, not the last one, because we've had the Lands Minister, among others, come through. But on Sunday, when Dr. Yawedichum, Education Minister, came through, this is one of the matters that they started with. Finance Minister asks IFC to increase private sector funding. And then check out the supplement on automobile industry. That is actually in the supplementary end of the newspaper. It talks about Ghana's growth trends, COVID-19 impact, and forecasts. And just briefly, Ghana's automobile market was valued at $4 billion in 2020 and is expected to reach $11 billion by the year 2026, registering a CAGR of 15% during the forecast period. That is 2020 to 2026. You can also check out why electric cars will take over sooner than you think. That's in the middle spread of the paper. On the back page, sea ravages homes in Ketu South. You can check out some photos there. There's an amplification of the call now to aid them, and some people are living in fear. Those are the headlines in the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let me now say a very good morning to Gifty Ando-Apia, who joins the conversation. Good morning, Gifty. So we shall reconnect with Gifty. A little glitch there. Technology is always like that. Let's move on with some other papers. The Daily Dispatch now. NPP's 2024 flag bearer slot. 6 candidates get set. I'm talking about the likes of Dr. Kofi Konadu-Apreku, Mr. Joe Gate, Mr. Adai Nimo, Mr. Boache Jako, remember? Dr. Mahamadou Baumia, and of course, Mr. Alan Tremantin. All of them lacing their boots, folding their sleeves, and getting ready. The story is on page 12. Okada ban must be maintained. That is according to Tampuli, Hassan Tampuli, deputy at the Roads Ministry, or is it Transport. Executive summary to Ghana's national security strategy. You can check that out on page 2. And then political will needed to implement brilliant national security strategy. NDC's Agalga says that. You can also check out this story. Obeda Samoa and the Nkrumah years in Ghanaian history. That's in the center spread. And this one as well, June 4, 1979, the explosion. That's there on page 8 of the paper. I'll wrap with this sanitation-related one. Operation Clean Your Frontage to start soon in Accra. Henry Quarte hints. Interestingly, some people are heckling him and not very happy with what he's been doing so far. Gifty, good morning.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Always good to have you. I'm well. Hope you are too.
I'm blessed.
Yeah, I know you are blessed. And we've dragged you this morning live on air to share in all the talk about the latest. So which papers do you have? And what are some of the headlines you'd like to touch on?
I have the Finder newspaper. And apart from the Finder newspaper, I also have the Daily Guide newspaper. Apart from the Daily Guide newspaper, I have the Ghanaian Times, and I can start with the.
Is that the Business Finder you have? Is that the Business Finder?
Yes.
Okay.
The Business Finder.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay. So let me start with the Ghanaian Times newspaper. I have some very disturbing stories on the inside pages. So IFC to inject $2 billion to shore up private sector. That story is on page 16, and it comes with a picture of the finance minister. President launches Ghana Enterprises Agency to replace NBSSI, and hairdresser stabs boyfriend to death. And then crisis in Burkina Faso, ECOWAS pledges to defeat terrorism. Those are the stories on the front page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And let me just go through the other front pages. So on the back page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, you have that Ghana celebrates World Oceans Day. Looks like we're getting more, conscious about the environment, which is good. And then we'll check in discipline among motorcycle riders in earnest, GAR minister. So that's for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Before I come to the inside pages of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, okay, let me just stick to it. You have the story about the IFC to inject $2 billion to shore up the private sector there and the center spread. Then you have President Akufo-Addo launching the Ghana Enterprises Agency. Then you have the president as well in ECOWAS pledging to defeat terrorism. And then you have that disturbing story about the hairdresser who stabbed the boyfriend to death. Then you have other stories, bizarre stories, like 9 convicts start jail terms at Ketekrachi prison. Woman dies in accident on Wokrom, Kenya, say Abrim Road. Then Cocobot 217 million financial loss trial, motion to stop judge dismissed. That's it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Let me move to the Daily Guide newspaper. Banner headline: female coup plotter in quote, wanted Nana eliminated. So the female coup plotter apparently, according to the newspaper, wanted President Akufo-Addo to be eliminated. Then the Domahine marks 22 years on the throne. The story is there as well, is on page 4. And Akufo-Addo promises Burkina Faso support. Opuni's move to remove judge fails again. 2 looters grabbed at Saglemi housing. Interesting story. I'd love to get the details. So the Daily Guide there. On the back page of the Daily Guide, gift companies in sports tax incentives. And Lazio tease Sari arrival with cigarette emoji. And GTTA boss gets top post. Also, Euro 2020 takes off tomorrow, as on the back page of the Daily Guide newspaper. On the inside pages of the newspaper, you find stories. Castro Janet Bandu to be legally declared dead in July, which is next month. Tiwa Savage say quarrel inside Lagos station. Okay. Then inflation falls further to 7.5% and review electricity tariff regime. That's a Japamesa talking. And build cyber resilience for businesses. Also, let's improve on anti-money laundering reforms. Those are some of the stories there for the Business Finder. Okay, yes. So let me take you through the final one, which is the Business Finder newspaper. The Business Finder says 145 million grant to support SMEs to recover from negative impact of COVID-19, according to President. And that story is on the front page. It's all about President Akufo-Addo's launch of that entity. And mining royalties give communities 30%. Inflation down to 7.5%. That's according to the Ghana Statistical Service. And yes, the Business Finder. Final one, which is the center spread. Fight against environmental degradation unabated, according to the ministry. AGOA extended to 2025. Ghanaian products in high demand. Comes with a picture of the American ambassador. Also, fix old Ningo Mangochona stretch. Railway revival a necessity, and Ghana woos IFC to invest in Ghana Cares Obatampa program. So, Benjamin, these are the newspapers that I have. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Gifty, for handing the baton over to me. I'll continue very quickly with the Daily Statesman, where it mentions that ECOWAS chair pledges support for Burkina Faso in terrorism fight. Of course, we're talking of our very own president. 145 million Ghana cedis ready for SMEs. That's another one there with reference to the support to benefit over 250 businesses. Opuni fails an attempt to change a judge. And this would be another attempt that has been thwarted by the court, or rejected, I should say. And government rallies citizens for green Ghana tomorrow. How do we redeem our country from 80% of our forest cover gone? The New Independent newspaper says, Alan Chamatin woos American investors. We've been talking about this in recent times. Expand NHIS to save workers dying mid-age. That's according to the ICU. And there's reject Ernest Arthur's renomination as Cape Coast MCE. Angry NPP supporters tell Akufo-Addo. But how about this one? Trouble brews at GRA. Customs boss, others accused of defying committee recommendations. And fallout from countdown to NPP's 2024 flag bearership race. Battle lines drawn as Baumia and Allen supporters clash. I'll wrap up with some business news, the Business and Financial Times now. Government sets aside 145 million to grow 350 SMEs as Ghana Enterprise Agency begin operations. Then there's inflation drops to 14-month low, back to pre-COVID-19 levels. Momo, mobile money, is most preferred digital payment method. That's according to Stanbic Bank. And then AML or CFT reform gains will be consolidated. IFC sets new strategy to aid in economic recovery. But here's something interesting. In yesterday's newspapers, I think the Daily Guide, the Daily Graphic, the Ghanaian Times, there was a bit of a discrepancy between the figures we were being given. I think 101 in one paper, 126, and is it 500 as far as those Zoom Lion trucks that were launched or initiated to serve sanitation purposes in our country are concerned. Today, I'm seeing something similar because in the Statesman, it says 145 million ready for SMEs, support to benefit over 250 businesses, not so. But this one in the BNFT says the same sum to grow 350 SMEs. I get it. Some may say it's to benefit over, but the specifics, discrepancies in there. Well, let's get into the details and check out some of those stories. Gifty, I'd like to hear from you first. What are some of the stories you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think the stories that focus on the environment sort of catch my attention. I know there are other stories that we'll consider big stories, but the stories that catch my attention really are stories that focus on the environment. So you have Ghana celebrate World Oceans Day. It shouldn't just be a celebration. And then you have the story that you read in the newspapers that you have about the tree planting exercise that Ghana is embarking upon. I personally think it is a big deal and we should do a lot of it. We should make a lot of noise about it and we should get it to the schools. I think that we should get our young people to appreciate the importance of having a safe environment and the importance of planting trees, for example. I think that I'd like to commend the sector minister for that work, but we all need to support them. I understand that all you have to do, for example, if you want to be a part of the project, which you should, is to just go to the Forestry Commission in your neighborhood and get the seedlings for free. I think that is great, and that story actually caught my attention a lot. The other story that breaks my heart is the hairdresser who has stabbed the boyfriend to death. Again, it's a bizarre story. And I think it just, yesterday, I heard some newspapers report that particular story, and they were talking about how the lady had a confrontation with this gentleman because apparently he was seeing some other women, even though they are supposed to be together. And I think the moment of anger, the things that we do in the moment of anger. And this morning, I want to go on these stories because, yeah, I mean, I've seen the big headlines, injecting 2 billion, etc., into the private sector. But I think these are our everyday stories. And I think I want to just use it as a point of advice. The things that we do in the moment of anger, it matters a lot. And we all have to constantly prepare our minds to a day when we get very angry and tell ourselves the things that we will do and the things that we cannot do, conscientize ourselves, and I think it will stick. That said, let me just talk about the launch of the Ghana Enterprises Agency. I don't know why it is replacing NBSSI, but people had concerns about the distribution of NBSSI. There were concerns that, this could go to political or party foot soldiers, etc. I don't know what the change, why we have, changed the name. We're changing the name of the project, and I don't know if it is just a change of the name and that it will do the same. Because my understanding of the NBSSI as it was to operate is, it seems to be the same as the Ghana Enterprises Agency that has been launched. It was to support businesses out of COVID-19. I don't know the difference, but have we had an audit of what we have done with NBSSI so far? And have we had feedback on whether or not the money we put in at the beginning has actually been able to revive any business at all? Have we done that? Why are we changing the name? Is it just a change of name, or does it mean that the modus operandi has changed? That have the people changed? Have the monies we are allocating to the organization changed? I think there are lots of questions, and I have not read the story, the details of the story, but I just raise these questions because as a journalist, I'm curious for answers to that effect.
And I'll just say this from a few things I noted at that press briefing at the Ministry of Information. I was mentioning earlier, it was made mention of that now there's a bit of a transformation as it moves from NBSSI into Ghana Enterprises Agency, transforming it into something stronger. And there was also reference to the new act that governs the Ghana Enterprises Agency, and that there's the creation of a new SME support fund of an initial 100 million. So maybe more money going to them and maybe more leverage in terms of what they can do and how many more people they can reach, Gifty. But I think you make a very important point. The sums that were doled out initially on the back of COVID-19, what have we said about them? What account have we given of them so far, to talk of going further with another such program and disbursement when we've not even come to some conclusion about, the first bit, this is how we used it. Very relevant points you make there.
Yeah, and Benjamin, accountability is important. 145 million CDs. what processes do we have to ensure that there's accountability? And to be fair to the NBSSI, I think that they have been quite open. They have been quite present in the media, explaining the things that they do. But I think it's time we get to, account for what has been spent so far,
right,
and what is going to be spent next. But again, okay, so I'm done with that one. I wanted to talk about Euro 2020. It's taking off tomorrow. And we've talked about it quite a lot. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Which team are you supporting? Which team are you supporting in the Euros?
At this point, I'm teamless. Concerned for the president who was unfortunately slapped recently. I might give my support to France. I might.
Okay. All right. I think they find themselves in the group of death, Group F, together with Germany, I think Turkey, is it? Or is it Hungary? And Portugal. So that group not looking very palatable for anybody. But let's quickly do something from the Daily Graphic newspaper. I think I'll focus more there, and I'll come back to you, Gifty. 3 legal miners jailed 45 years, fined 720,000 Ghana cedis. I just want to highlight that one as well as we all talk about the fight against illegal mining. And 3 legal miners, that story is on page 41 of the Daily Graphic, have been sentenced to a total of 45 years and also fined 720,000 Ghana cedis for undertaking small-scale mining operations without a license. The 3 convicts, Joseph Donko, 40, Joseph Paul, 27, and Charles Ewusi, 27, were each jailed 15 years on 2 counts of mining without licenses and conspiracy to commit crime. In addition, they were fined 240,000 cedis each. The convicts were caught in the act of illegally prospecting for gold in a forest reserve on February 16 during an operation by a team from the Regional Forestry Commission. And so that is a story there. The long arms of the law, no matter how slow, are reaching some of these people, and I think it's a step in the right direction. But here's something that I want to believe you'd love to comment on, Gifty. Integrating the mentally ill into society. 222 cured patients stranded. And more than 2/3 of the patients on admission at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital who have fully recovered are still stuck at the hospital because their families have simply refused to reconnect with them. Some 222 out of the hospital's 333 patients on admission ought to be home with their families, but unfortunately, they have been abandoned by these families. The situation has become a drain on the hospital's facilities and a hindrance to new admissions. Gifty, what do you make of this? It appears, I see from where I sit, I see that a lot of the social benefits that people need. Look, on the back of COVID-19, I was speaking to a pediatrician only yesterday who was talking about how depression and obesity are becoming common among young people. Sometimes psychiatric help, the sort of little things that we need that are accessible in other parts of the world. And they are very rare here. And then you come to the bit about even stigmatization of the mentally ill and all of that. What is your reaction to this?
For our problem in this country when it comes to mental health is stigmatization and money. Stigmatization and money, and maybe to some extent ignorance. I think this story is not new. In 2014, I did a story about mental health. And we can go back all the way and compare the scripts. You'll see that we're telling the same story. Between 2014 and 2021, we're telling the same story about mental health. The families come and abandon their children, their family, friends, whatever. They abandon them all the time. And so it puts a lot of stress on the psychiatric hospital, and it puts a lot of stress, especially on the individuals who work there. Yeah. If you have been to the psychiatry, you'll see they have a children's, let me call it a children's ward, where you see young people and sometimes children who have, mental health conditions. It's pathetic. It's heartbreaking. And I don't know why we have talked about it over and over and over again. We had Dr. Akwesio say, who did so much work. You see, one person can't do the work.
Right.
So at a point, people like Dr. Akwesio say will get fatigued. They will get tired. Even the media will get tired. talking about the same thing over and over again. And at the end of the day, we'll be back to square one, which is where I think we are. We talked about the mental health legislation, which was done, but the people were saying the legislation has to go through so that there will be some allocation of funds, money. That's what I'm saying. That a bigger problem when it comes to dealing with mental health in this country is money. And it's because we have not taken it seriously enough to commit the finances to it. And it's bad. Dr. Otabel has said that the way that a country treats its vulnerable determines, I've forgotten what he added to it, but he talks about the fact that it's so important to, as a country, the conscience of a country, for example, I think is measured by the way it treats its vulnerable. I don't know what saying this will change, but I think that we've been a disgrace to ourselves when it comes to dealing with mental health. And there's so much stigma to go around. I guess that is almost impossible to deal with it.
I guess it says a lot about the seriousness we attach to dealing with mental health concerns in our country. A lot to be done, a whole lot to be done. But let's quickly wrap with these stories. Page 17 of the Daily Graphic first. Speaker advocates mutual respect between Parliament and the judiciary. And this is one we've been following, Gifty. The Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Alban Bagbin, has called for mutual respect between Parliament and the judiciary in the discharge of their respective duties. He said it had taken a long period of history, lessons and efforts to achieve a cordial and harmonious relationship between the judiciary and the legislature, which must be safeguarded. He spoke to parliamentarians to accord members of the judiciary and the judicial service the utmost respect, decency and decorum they deserve. And he cited Article 117 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, providing that civil or criminal processes coming from any court or place out of Parliament shall not be served on or executed in relation to the Speaker or member of or the Clerk to Parliament while he is on his way, attending or returning from any proceedings of Parliament. He, however, noted that the constitutional provision, which stated that members should not be served with court processes while Parliament was in session, had in some instances been disregarded by some court officials. But the final issue I want to wrap with, Gifty, and take your thoughts on. I know you follow the international trail a lot. Former President Donald Trump has been speaking, and he's been hailing Buhari's ban of Twitter. And he says, who are they to dictate good and evil if they themselves are evil? And he goes on to say that during his tenure as president, he would have banned Facebook, but Mark Zuckerberg kept calling him and coming to his house, the White House, I should say, and telling him how wonderful a person he is. Donald Trump, what do you make of that?
I'm wondering why you're surprised anyway. I am not surprised to hear that from Donald Trump. I mean, I don't think anybody is. We know his position. We know where he stands, you know, and he's been bitten by the same action. So he certainly will support what Nigeria is doing. This conversation requires a lot of time because there are so many pros and cons. But the bottom line is suppression of speech or suppression of people's ability to express themselves. And I think Nigeria, for me, ought to know better in this instance. I don't know why they are doing this, and I don't know how they expect to win. But the Nigeria we know, again, you won't be so surprised about some of these actions because Nigerians like to, you know, stand up for themselves, you know, and I'm using this in this context, I'm using it advisedly, right? You know, Nigerians, like, you know, they don't joke with some of these things. I don't know how they intend to win in this, but a lot of countries have risen up and spoken against that, what they have done, and the fact that it suppresses free speech, which is a fundamental human right. So I'm hoping that they will be advised and they will reverse. Also, what Donald Trump is saying is not a surprise. But we thank God that he's no longer at the presidency, because we've also seen how much of an agenda he had against the media for some reason. I don't know.
Fake news became a common term
from him, which was bad enough for all of us. So let's see how it ends with Nigeria. But I hope that they revert, they reverse this decision
Thank you, Gifty and Pia. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us for the news review this morning. I'll just chip in that President Trump, I think he has a permanent ban on Twitter, one of them, and I think Facebook is extending it for about another 2 years at least. He started a blog post in recent times, but it didn't generate the sort of buzz he wanted, and he shut it down. Well, interesting stuff. Do we have enough time for myjoyonline.com? Okay, so we don't, but we're going to do this. You can always go there, myjoyonline.com. Check out the latest stories, all of them right there on that platform. Coming up next, we have sports. Do stay.